you want to get in when it's early so you have the first mover advantage over your competitors, right? All right, so since it's the afternoon, I'm trying to get you guys to wake up a little bit. So why don't you go to your partners and give each other a high five really quick, left and right. Just do it really quick. Just do it really quick. There you go. There you go. All right, great. So I'm going to be talking about the 7 tips to succeed with podcasting while also winning at SEO. Plus, I'm going to give a little bonus and talk about Facebook Messenger bots and the recent success that we've been seeing with it. So there's a little bit of a title change here, but I wanted to focus more on 2 things that you can do. Just a quick show of hands really quick. Who here actually listens to podcasts? Okay. Thanks, man. Cool. So my name's Eric Siu, like Clayton said, and I run a marketing agency called Single Grain. And I also have a podcast with Neil Patel where we nerd out on marketing every single day, and it's called Marketing School. And so we put a lot of time into it. If you feel like nerding out on marketing, just listen to it. And also there's one more. It's called Growth Everywhere, and that's where I interview a lot of different entrepreneurs, and we talk about how they grew their business, we talk about their struggles, and we talk about how they grow personally as well, which is really important to me. So when you talk about growth, when you talk about growth marketing or growth hacking, I think at the end of the day, you also need to think about yourself too. How do you yourself grow, right? Growth hacking yourself, personal growth, whatever you want to call it. So that's my little way of getting into other people's heads. So that's enough about me. I want to talk about what you're going to get out of this talk. So really quick over here, this graph shows that podcasting, at least in the United States, is continuing to get bigger and bigger. And it makes sense, right? Because in the United States, at least, Apple podcasts are going into cars, and connections speeds are getting a lot faster as well. Phones are getting better too. So it just makes sense that podcasting is growing because you get this information for free, and you get to learn from people, right? So it's a good deal. So 21%, that's 21% versus 17% in the last year. And you can see that 1/3 of Americans have now said they listen to a podcast. And Libsyn, which is the hosting tool that I use for podcasting, and I think for those of you trying to get into podcasting, Libsyn is a really great option to check out. But 3.3 billion downloads in 2015. So again, getting bigger and bigger. Libsyn provides a lot of options. I'll talk about it in a second. So what does podcasting actually give you? Like, what's the ROI of podcasting, right? If we're going to spend money on it, if we're going to spend time in it, what's it actually going to yield? And at the end of the day, it gives you, first of all, you get customers from it, right? And here's the great thing about the customers that we get from podcasting. As a services-based business, people will call in, they'll say, hey, Eric, really appreciate the podcast. By the way, we want to work with you. And the great thing about it is that the sales cycle is much shorter and the LTV is a lot higher because they get to know who you are. It's the same thing as when you watch a webinar, you're more likely to purchase from people because, well, you've listened to them for an hour, you trust them, and you're more likely to take out your credit card and buy whatever software or course that they have available. So it's great for recruiting too. Some of the best people that I found for Single Grain are people that have reached out to me on Twitter and said, hey, I listened to your podcast, I really want to work for you. And for these people coming out of college, it takes a certain kind of person to listen to an entrepreneurial podcast or a marketing podcast in the first place, right? So these are the kinds of people that you want to hire, right? Growth Tribe here is all about learning, right? I'm looking at this poster right here, always be learning, right? So those are the people that you want to hire, the people that are constantly growing, not people that are trying to come into your company and just being another cog in the system. And I highly recommend getting all your new hires to read a book from Seth Godin called Linchpin. It's really good. It tells people not to be cogs in the system. Speaking opportunities, the fact that I'm here, the fact that I've been in Brazil, the fact that I've been in other countries is because of the podcast. So, you might not get immediate ROI from it. It takes a long time to build up, and I'll show you what I mean in a second. But, when people get to know you and you have a platform like this, it's the same thing with having a YouTube channel, and it's actually easier to manage than a YouTube channel because you can do this in your boxers or your underwear, and you get free mentorship from people too. I can talk to people. I'm talking to David over here in a couple of weeks. He ran a great company called Max CDN. Free mentorship from people. I want to learn what makes them tick, right? I want to learn what hacks they're using, what marketing stuff that they're doing to make their companies grow. I want to learn how they struggled. I want to learn what the last book they read was, right? I want to learn all this stuff. and then they'll give me more tips for other people to interview because great people like to hang out with great people. Partnerships too. I'll talk about a little thing that Neil and I are doing with marketing school right now in terms of partnerships. So just so many great things that you can do and introductions to great people. So this is the overall worldwide interest in podcasting over the last 5 years. And you can see that it's starting to spike up, right? Again, the technology is getting there, right? You have your internet speeds that are getting there as well. And it makes sense for podcasting to start growing. Now, you're probably wondering, like, I've been giving you these stats around the United States, like, who cares about the US, right? Well, let's look at the Netherlands really quick. You can see it's starting to spike up as well. You can look at the last year or so, it's starting to slowly inch up, and that means now is the time to get in on it, right? When you see something start to make its way up, you talk about Facebook Messenger ads, for example. You want to talk about podcasting. You want to get in when it's early so you have the first mover advantage over your competitors, right? So these are the stats around growth everywhere. This is my podcast where I interview entrepreneurs. This is about 800,000 over 3.5 years. So it's not great versus some of you are probably getting millions of visits a month, but you can see it's slow growth. You can see at least for the first about 2 years or so, God, it was a tough slog, right? And I'll talk about that in a second. But now, we're getting up to 100,000, 130,000 downloads a month, and some days we'll get about 10 or 15,000. So it's decent, right? And that led up to this, where I started the podcast with Neil, and in 8 months, we're already at 3.3 million downloads, and it's getting bigger and bigger. But again, it wouldn't have happened if I didn't have growth everywhere to lock down the process to get to this phase.